Welcome to another edition of the Magic Ladies Podcast where we discuss everything Orlando Magic basketball. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we are going to get into a little bit of Orlando Magic news. But before we get started, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily Orlando Magic content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers and trying to become one of the biggest networks on the platform when it comes to covering the Orlando Magic. So shout out to you guys who have already hit subscribe. And if you've been watching all the episodes and haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I don't know what you're doing. You need to lock in. NBA training camp is around the corner, and that means NBA season is also going to be up and coming as well. So you want to be locked in every single day for this Orlando Magic news. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get right into today's episode, starting off with Goga Bitadze, who had a big-time double-double performance in the game for Georgia's victory over Cyprus, where they won 93-61. They improved to 2-2 in Eurobasket for Group C, and now they are still in contention for a spot in the knockout stage, particularly for Goga Bitadze. He finished the game with 21 points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks, and assists, shot 7 of 12 from the field, and shot 4 of 7 from beyond the arc in 22 minutes. 4 of 7 from beyond the arc, 13 rebounds, 7 of 12 from the field, 22 minutes in limited time. Technically in Eurobasket, that's not limited playing time, but still. 22 minutes in the NBA would be considered a pitch count. That would be a backup. That would be a backup player's typical. If you're a sixth, seventh, or eighth man, that would be a typical rotation minutes mark for you. Is around 18 to 23 minutes a game. So my boy was able to get a 20-point double-double with 4 made three-pointers in what would be typical backup center minutes. Y'all, I keep telling y'all, when I was talking about Eurobasket for Franz Wagner, Tristan da Silva, Goga Bitadze is in this as well. There's a real opportunity for Goga Bitadze to play himself into some crazy money. Some crazy money. Building off of Eurobasket with Georgia into the regular season. I'm not saying this man's going to average 20 and 10 off the bench and 20-something minutes off a game. But if the Orlando Magic are watching closely at the ways that Goga Bitadze has been able to produce as a 3-level scorer in Eurobasket, he is going to be a very integral piece in a potential playoff run for this team off the bench if he can continue to maintain the level of success that he's had during Eurobasket. Again, not necessarily averaging 20 and 10, but it's the philosophy around his three-way scoring, the offensive rebounding, shooting the three ball at a decent clip. Like, these are the things that translate well. If Goga Bitadze can be a stretch big next to Mo Wagner, next to Jonathan Isaac, next to Wendell Carter Jr., that is special given the fact that he's already a high-level defender as a rim defender and a dude who next to Mo Wagner was a complete game wrecker in open space. When you talk about playing passing lanes, secondary side help as a shot blocker, things of that nature, Goga Bitadze already showed really good strides last season as a high-level defender. If he can add a three ball to that, if he can add this high-level rebounding to that, Goga Bitadze is going to be special, man. There's going to be a world where the Orlando Magic are not going to be able to afford Goga. Goga is getting slept on more and more as the summer progresses. I've said at the very top of the summer, this is a guy that I actually would love to keep on the roster long term. I just think there's no world where when he comes up for contract, not this upcoming offseason, but the next one, this is going to be a guy who's going to command. If Nikola Vucevic and Kristaps Porzingis got $20 million, if Jakob Poeltl got $20+ million from the Toronto Raptors, Goga Bitadze is a bare minimum a $20 million a year man for somebody's team soon. And if they want to, if a team wants to go the pre-agency route, a la team like what Indiana did with acquiring Pascal Siakam, you get him a year early, sign him into an extension after that. If Goga is not moved at this trade deadline, there's a high likelihood that Goga Bitadze is moved for something next trade deadline, with the anticipation that that team looks to re-sign him long term. We definitely need to enjoy Goga Bitadze on the Orlando Magic while we have the chance because he is slowly but surely playing himself into being too expensive for the Orlando Magic to sign long term with some of the contracts that are already on the books for this team. Um, Very proud of what Goga Bitadze has going right now. Like I said, Team Georgia is at 2-2 in teams in the Group C area, where again they are in contention for making the knockout round right now. Goga Bitadze just holding down the fort expeditiously. Let's talk about NBA training camp coming around the corner. As I mentioned beforehand, it's only a couple of weeks now before teams start heading back to their homes in their home team states to start locking in for NBA training camp. And for the Orlando Magic, the 15-man roster is already signed, but they did bring in 4 Exhibit 10 signings with the anticipation of filling in one of their two-way spots that are available, along with potentially moving some guys to a real opportunity with their G League team. Those guys that they brought in, and they've already been discussed on the podcast for the most part, except for one that was done recently, starts with Reese Beekman, Colin Castleton, Lester Quiones, and Justin Mignogna. So really Reese Beekman and Justin Mignogna are the two that have not been discussed on the podcast because they were more recently brought in. Beekman played 36 games with Golden State and Brooklyn last season. Reese Beekman has played 126 games in his career over 4 seasons since coming out of Virginia, averaging 9.5 points, 5 assists, 3.4 rebounds, and just around 2 steals a game in that time frame where he was with Virginia. Castleton, as we discussed on the podcast before, played 26 games with Memphis, Toronto, and Philly last year. Averaged nearly 5 points a game, nearly 5 rebounds in 16 minutes. Did most of his damage in the G League, where he averaged 18 points and 11 rebounds, 3 assists, a block a game, a steal a game in 30 minutes. Heavy stuff. Then you go to a guy like Justin Mignogna, played 19 games with Portland last year, but barely really saw the floor, if I'm being honest. Only 5 minutes per game. Did most of his damage in the G League, 11 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, nearly 2 steals a game with Rip City. And then last but not least, we have Lester Quiones, who I think has the most upside of those guys. And he played 87 games at Memphis, but is coming off of a season where he played with Golden State. He also he's also played with Philadelphia and New Orleans, but did most of his damage in the G League with Santa Cruz and the Birmingham squad for New Orleans, where he averaged 21 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists per game, and was the G League's most improved player. Not too much craziness to get into with these guys, given the fact that the main thing for these players is that they are probably going to operate on the G League team for the Orlando Magic. Um, with there being one two-way spot available and these 4 being in contention for that, if I had to rank my most likely to make that two-way spot versus least likely, I'd say the most likely is probably going to be Lester Quiones. I would say the next best I would go for is Colin Castleton, then Reese Beekman, then Justin Mignogna, personally. And I could see why Colin Castleton and Lester could be interchangeable. But I feel as though the center position between Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter, Goga Bitadze, Mo Wagner, I feel like that's pretty well solidified. And I think that the shot creation that Lester Quiones brings is enough for him to at least be an interesting call up guy here and there if guys like Jace Richardson aren't ready, or if Desmond Bain or Jalen Suggs go down due to injury. The shot creation that Lester Quiones brings to the table is something unique enough that it gives you a certain jolt offensively that could be worth seeing on the big squad in certain opportunities where guards either go down, are rested, or simply just to find more shot creation on the roster, given the fact that outside of Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner and Desmond Bain, the versatility in terms of shot creation is very limited. I think the next best shot creator, in my personal opinion, in terms of individual shot creation, might even be Jace Richardson, the rookie, who might not be able to display that at its full potential in his rookie season, but is probably the fourth best on ball shot creator on the roster already. Lester Quinones, I don't necessarily know if he would be the fifth, but he would be a guy that has the skill set to be another high level shot creator, I think, at this level. So that would be my ranking, with Lester Quinones and Colin Castleton being at the top in terms of being guys I think are very likely to lock down that last two-way spot. Those other whatever three do not lock that spot down, again, will likely end up playing for the Orlando Magic's G League team. Next up, let's talk about God Shammgod, who had some very high remarks related to the up and coming stars Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, particularly saying Paulo and Franz and them, they're coming into their own right now. They're at the right age where they're still young, but they are young enough to dare to be great. And I believe like Paulo and Franz are going is going to be great. But Desmond Bain, Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, we got Tyus Jones. Now we got so many great players, and they're all right. And I feel like right now they all are ready to make their mark. So I'm just happy and honored to be a part of it. God Shammgod, brought in as a developmental coach, obviously has a well-renowned early stage career as a developmental coach with the Dallas Mavericks, particularly last season, working with Kyrie Irving a handful. Obviously, has worked with Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, so on and so forth. God Shammgod has had a track record of developmental history with the guard position, particularly, which is super huge when you talk about what the Orlando Magic have done over just the last offseason, having Tyus Jones, bringing back Jalen Suggs, who hopefully should be healthy this season, bringing in a guy like Desmond Bain, having Anthony Black on the roster, right? You have this young guard group. Yes, you bring in Tyus Jones, who's more of a veteran savvy guy, but you still have a very young guard group. You add in Jace Richardson to that mix. You mix in Jet Howard, who is still on this team. From a developmental standpoint, God Shammgod is going to be very important, not only in terms of helping them open up their offensive game, but also learn to be more versatile both on and off the ball, which is going to be super important playing next to guys like Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, who not only demand on ball touches but demand the respect of open court through of a more open floor through seeing things like spacing, seeing things like off ball movement from their guards. It's going to be really important. So shout out to God Shammgod for being so high on his guys. He should be. He's coming into a program where he's going to have a real moldable group. And if these guys really, act like sponges and soak up information from a guy like this, who's helped develop developmental process of some of the better guards in the NBA, and has been able to work around some of the better guards in the NBA during his stint with the Dallas Mavericks. Spencer Dinwiddie is another name that comes to mind. You're talking about a guy who could really pour a lot of knowledge into what is still, as he mentioned, a really young Orlando Magic basketball team. So I'm actually really, really excited to see what God Shammgod is able to do. I'm really interested talking about NBA training camp to hear some of the things that come out of training camp, particularly from God Shammgod, when it comes to maybe some of his developmental processes, what guards he may be working the most closely with. Is he going to be working with Jace Richardson, Anthony Black, Jet Howard the most? Are we going to be working on opening up the offensive floor more for guys like Jalen Suggs and Desmond Bain? It's going to be really interesting to hear his philosophy on helping these guys grow, particularly on offense, because that's going to be a thing that raises this team to another level, because their two main all-stars are solidified. Their defensive infrastructure and defensive mentality backed by Jalen Suggs being the anchor of that all is already established. It's all about creating more efficient offensive flow now. It's about creating more opportunity for easy offensive offensive sets, easier offensive baskets, in terms of just taking some of the pressure off of Franz and Paulo. Like, even though those guys are so good, you could tell that the offense was so clunky in the last year and a half, where you're just like, it feels like the game offensively has been played a lot harder just due to the lack of offensive versatility from the guys around Franz Wagner and Paulo Beccaro. So again, hope that Shammgod is able to unlock some stuff this upcoming season for their young guards. And I'm going to be really interested to hear what he has to say throughout NBA training camp, where I think a lot of the developmental process is probably going to come from. Last but not least, rather than ending on a question of the day, hey man, listen. SI is on an absolute roll. Sports Illustrated proposed a trade where the Magic go after Aaron Nesmith and Obi Toppin of the Indiana Pacers. Who would be involved in this trade, you may ask? Jonathan Isaac, Goga Bitadze, Jet Howard, a future first, and a future second round pick, both belonging to the Orlando Magic. I think Aaron Nesmith is a really solid player, has risen to the occasion in a multitude of situations in the postseason the last 2 years. I think Obi Toppin has definitely gained a lot of traction with Indiana. I think he's been given a lot more opportunity here with Indiana as opposed to when he was drafted by the New York Knicks. It felt like they kind of underutilized him based on what his skill set was, or maybe overestimated what his true ability was as an older player coming out of Dayton. You have a guy like Jonathan Isaac, who's a defensive anchor. You have a guy in Goga Bitadze, who I just spoke very highly of as a dude that I think can really, I think he is capable, even off the bench, of averaging a double double. Do I think he'll average 20 points per game? No, I do not. But do I think that he can be a guy that averages 10 and 10? Do I think he's a guy that I think could average 11 and 8? Yes, I do. Jet Howard, I made my, my opinions clear on him, but a guy that I think is um, still should command a decent amount of value just given the fact that he is a former lottery pick. So with that all being said, I look at this trade and you also throw in the fact that we're supposed to give in two future picks that both belong to us, an Orlando Magic team that already is so expensive that it's going to make it hard to add significant talent as we get further and further along Paulo Beccaro and Franz Wagner's career. The idea of giving up a future first in a situation where you add Aaron Neesmith, you add Indiana's Obi Toppin as well, right? And you have to ask yourself, like, I mean, I don't necessarily know whether or not that's worth it. I think the biggest question, of course, would end up being, the thought around where they line up as far as their contracts are concerned. That would probably be the biggest question. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they're fully on the timeline with Paulo, with Franz. Yes, I'm looking at it right now. Aaron Neesmith is on a straight $11 million a year contract, but he's going to be an unrestricted free agent 2 seasons from now. You move off of Jonathan Isaac and Goga Bitadze. I mean, you position yourself for a 2 year window where you have a guy like Aaron Neesmith who's going to command much more than $11 million with what he's been able to do over the last handful of seasons. He's going to be a guy who you're going to have to respect on the open market legitimately. And then Obi Toppin as well, I think is another guy who is going to be like very soon expiring contract. You're running into a situation very similar to the conversation we had with Goga Bitadze. Actually, these guys would expire the same year that Goga Bitadze does. Again, not being available this upcoming summer, but available the summer after, which puts the Orlando Magic in a really weird spot. Okay, Obi Toppin signed for one more extra year, but he's on a contract escalator. He has this season 14 million, next season 15 million, and then at age 29 he's owed 16 million dollars. I don't know. Yes, there's some playoff experience there, and both of these players are high level defenders, high level defenders. I would love to round out the big man spot. Obi Toppin is more of a true power forward as opposed to a center. We're essentially giving up two centers for one power forward, and then swapping out Jet Howard, who's not probably going to play a ton on this team, for Aaron Neesmith, who probably would be the de facto backup shooting guard slash small forward. I could see a world where Tristan Da Silva and Aaron Neesmith are on the backup unit next to Tyus Jones, or Tristan Da Silva be small ball four, Aaron Neesmith off the bench at the three spot, and then you have Jace Richardson and Tyus Jones, smaller backcourt, but you have two guys defensively in De Silva and Neesmith who can be good. I don't know. This one's got me a little torn. I'm interested to hear what you guys say in the comment section down below because I like what Goga Bitadze has showed us this summer. I know what Jonathan Isaac means to this team and what he means as a rim defender. I know what both these guys mean as rim defenders. I know that Jet Howard probably demands at least a a distant first round pick just off of the fact that he's been that he was a lottery pick that can still be revitalized, right? If not, at least a second or a high level second. We're not getting a single draft pick in this, but we are getting two high level defenders and two guys that have had real postseason success over the last 2 years. You are getting an elite level defender, or at least a high level defender on the perimeter in Aaron Neesmith, who would come off the bench and play next to De Silva, Tyus Jones, Jace Richardson, and some combination of like Mo Wagner or Wendell Carter in who would stay off the off the starting unit and stay as the main center. More than likely it will be Mo Wagner just because we're giving up Jonathan Isaac and Goga Bitadze. We'd only have Mo Wagner as a backup center left. This is killing our center depth, but it's improving our postseason acumen in terms of having two guys that are proven, and it's improving our defensive infrastructure a little bit more in terms of perimeter defense because you have two guys that are able to operate really good in space, slide their feet, good lateral quickness. You have guys that can operate in the transition game really well. I was talking about Obi Toppin. You have a guy that can operate as a knockdown, catch and shoot 3-point shooter, and Aaron Neesmith, something that the Orlando Magic do really need. You can tell from what they were able to do or what they wanted to do when they acquired KCP. Aaron Neesmith is essentially the younger, more athletic, more defensive, versatile version of what they were trying to get in KCP last year. I can see the Orlando Magic wanting to do this. I can see the Orlando Magic wanting to do this. I don't love the idea of giving up Goga and multiple picks, a first round pick and a second round pick in this trade. I know it's more likely to make the money work, especially given the fact that him and Neesmith are both expirings. So essentially it's Obi Toppin kind of more aligning with what Jonathan Isaac and Jet Howard have, and probably the multiple picks is probably because of the fact that Jonathan Isaac is the most expensive player in this group, and I think it's by a decent margin too, if I'm not mistaken. So in a sense, they're taking on bad salary and they're getting a backup center for a team that just traded Miles Turner. I could see both teams. I could see both teams low key wanting to do this, depending on how bad of a season start the Indiana Pacers have. The only reason the Indiana Pacers would give up on Aaron Neesmith and Obi Toppin is if they think that without Tyrese Halliburton on the floor, this season is so unsalvageable that they need to start making cost cutting moves to build up a new roster around Tyrese for when he comes back. He thinks that like they look at the start of this season and they're like, without Tyrese, we're so bad that the infrastructure for this team is too dependent on Tyrese, and we need to retool in a way that's much more built for being able to sustain success, whether Tyrese Halliburton is on the floor or not, and more particularly if he's able to return back to the dang near MVP status that he was at over the last 2 seasons as a guy who was like legitimately in the conversation for like top 3 point guards in the entire league over the last 2 years. So do I not? I don't love the trade on the surface, but I can understand the philosophy behind both teams wanting to pursue a potential trade like this one. Again, you guys let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about Sports Illustrated proposing this trade for the Orlando Magic to get Aaron Neesmith and Obi Toppin from the Indiana Pacers. But with that being said, this has been another edition of the Magic Latest Podcast. Again, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. I will be back with you guys tomorrow for another banger. But until then, peace.